Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, just imagine you're releasing a feeling of tension. Breathing in that feeling of relaxation as you breathe in. And as you breathe out, just allowing your shoulders and neck to relax. That's it. Going deeper and deeper relax with each and every breath. That's right. I want you to imagine that as you breathe in and breathe out, those parts of your body that contain tension are willing and able to release that tension. Because I don't know if there's tension around your eyebrows or eyes, perhaps your jaw, perhaps your shoulders. But any tension that you're aware of, become aware of it on the inward breath. And as you breathe out, just let go of that tension now. Going deeper and deeper relaxed. And I want you to imagine that with each and every breath, taking you deeper and deeper relaxed, that your brain waves are slowly changing their frequency away from that waking state to more of a daydream state. The brain waves are going from alpha to beta, all the way to those theta waves, those deep, low frequencies. That means it's easy for you to tap into your vivid imagination. And I want you to imagine that you have got the ability to go backwards and forwards in time, and also that you've got the ability to go anywhere in the world. I want you to imagine that you're about to take a trip. Take a trip to the Great Pyramids of Giza, all the way in Egypt, in North Africa. And I want you to imagine that you're there in the desert. And perhaps you can see on the horizon those 3 pyramids. And you're wearing whatever clothes are appropriate to be in the desert. And you're not there in modern day. You're there perhaps 1,000 years ago. Because the modern day pyramids are almost rough. But back then, they had a shiny surface, able to reflect the sun, almost like a giant sundial. There's no one around the pyramids. It's just you and the pyramids. And perhaps you can see that impressive structure of the Sphinx. And I want you to get a sense that these pyramids are at least 1,000 years old and will exist for thousands of years in the future. And you're just glimpsing them at a moment in time, knowing that something so big has been there for a long time and will continue to be there for a long time. I want you to get a sense that the intelligence, the planning, the mathematics, the ingenuity to create these pyramids existed in the minds of people that aren't around anymore. But I want you to get a sense as you look at these pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid, the largest of the 3. I want you to get a sense as you're looking at these pyramids that the ability to tap into the capability of the human mind existed to create these pyramids, and therefore that infinite capability of the human mind, I want you to imagine the energy transferring from the pyramids going into your mind, firing off those neurons, giving you a sense of wonder, of possibility, of what it would be like to tap into the potential of your own mind. I want you to imagine that as night turns to day, you still retain that feeling of unlimited potential that exists within you. And I want you to imagine that you're able to lie there on the sand, looking up at the stars. And there is no light pollution back then. This is 1,000 years ago. I want you to see the brightness of the stars, maybe some shooting stars. And I want you to get a sense of just how big the galaxy is. Because these stars that you see in front of you aren't the entire universe. They're just stars within our own galaxy. And that galaxy itself is one tiny part of this gigantic universe. And I want you to get a sense that in the same way that those that created the pyramids were on Earth for a period of time, and they had the ability to make an impact that was visible for thousands of years after they were no longer there. Tapping into that power of infinite possibility absorbed from the pyramids, I want you to get a sense of what your legacy, what your impact could be. How you can make a dent in history. And I want you to imagine that it's so relaxing looking up at those stars that you can imagine falling asleep on the sand, just on the edges of these grand pyramids. And as you do so, I want you to dream. And I want you to dream that you're going even further back in time to one of the first of the large cities, almost the first of proper civilization. I want you to imagine that you're there in the ancient city of Babylon, in what would be modern-day Iraq. I want you to imagine that there you are, just walking along the Euphrates River. And this is a grand city with impressive architecture. There are street sellers. There's impressive art and sculptures. But as you walk down the river, I want you to get a sense of a particular structure. Almost like a building with balconies, terraces. And in each of the terraces are the most exotic and strange-looking trees and plants. And it occurs to you that you're witnessing the hanging gardens of Babylon. And I want you to climb up those stairs, those concrete stairs, exploring the different terraces, the different plants. And perhaps there are fruit trees, maybe of fruits that no longer even exist. And I want you to imagine that you're seeing a brightly coloured fruit that you can't possibly describe, but it looks ripe. And I want you to imagine that you're just taking that ripe fruit from that tree and these impressive terraces, looking over this grand city with impressive buildings. And I want you to entertain the idea that there is always visionaries that exist in all different places, in all different times. And that for someone to create these hanging gardens of Babylon, they needed to have a vision. And as you start eating this strange fruit from the tree in the hanging gardens of Babylon, I want you to get a sense that inside this fruit is giving you the resource of vision. Not eyesight, but vision. The ability to see your future in exciting and compelling ways. That with this fruit gives you the ability to manifest the future that you would desire. And perhaps Perhaps there's a comfortable chair made of perhaps wood, where you can look out across the entire city of Babylon. And I want you to imagine that again you can take a nap on that comfortable wooden chair and just allow your mind to drift. And I want your mind to drift all the way back to ancient Greece. I want you to imagine that you're in a city known as Olympia. And there is a grand temple. And in that grand temple, there is a huge statue of Zeus. Now you might know Zeus as the king of the gods in Greek mythology. Unlimited power, strength, the father of Hercules. And I want you to get a sense as you witness firsthand this impressive statue of Zeus. Not just the strength of Zeus, but the strength of the craftsman that created this giant statue there in this ancient temple. And as you look at the statue, I want you to feel that the strength of Zeus is being transferred from the statue into you. That you're becoming stronger in whatever type of strength is appealing and desirable to you. This might mean physical strength, mental strength, emotional strength. Just get a sense that as you look at the statue, this impressive figure of Zeus, that strength is transferring from Zeus to you, and you can adjust your posture to make you feel stronger. That you're getting stronger and stronger with each second that passes, and each breath you take, you're feeling stronger and stronger. And again, I want you to imagine now drifting off, perhaps backwards or forwards in time, but this time to a different temple. No longer the temple in Olympia, but you're now in a place called Ephesus, a Greek port that would now be on the west coast of modern-day Turkey. This is an impressive temple with marble pillars. Everyone that witnessed it could only admire this grand temple, lined with trees on either side, looking out to the sea. This was a temple made of marble. I want you to get a sense as you explore this temple with its fantastic art, the images, the sculptures that surround it. There is a sense of creativity linked to this temple. It required creativity to build it, to paint the images, the monuments that surround it. I want you to get a sense that as you walk down the aisles and around the temple of Artemis, you are absorbing this feeling of creativity. With each and every breath and each and every footstep, you're feeling more and more creative, more and more inspired, having the ability to be creative in your own life, in your own way. Because creativity means different things to different people. And I want you to get a sense of what creativity would mean for you if you were 10 times more creative than you currently are. What could you do? What problems could you solve? What ideas could you turn into reality? As you get a sense of that creativity, you can also appreciate that imagination is a form of creativity. And while you're there in the temple of Artemis, I want you to imagine what it would be like to be in a different place, not too far, also in what would now be called Turkey. But back then, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, in a place called Hypnosis, there was a mausoleum, an impressive building, large, many floors, the most impressive building of anywhere near it. This mausoleum was massive, made entirely of white marble. And back then, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, at 135 feet high, with its complicated design, rectangular layers, and 60-foot base of steps, I want you to explore inside and outside and get a sense of your own mortality, that this mausoleum contains people that are not around anymore. It was only the very rich and influential that ended up in this mausoleum. But I want you to get a feeling that in every time, in every age, life is finite. And that isn't a reason to be sad or anxious, because it's the finality of life that gives life meaning. That time is there to be used, treasured. And I want you to get a feeling, a sense of excitement, urgency, a feeling from this mausoleum that you will turn your life into a piece of art. And any art comes with a vision in mind. It's designed, not left to chance. This building is a piece of art, and you can't help but wonder what it would be like to turn your life into a piece of art. Something to be admired, appreciated, and enjoyed. And as you walk away from the mausoleum, your imagination kicks in, and you now imagine that you're somewhere else. Somewhere very far away. I want you to imagine that you're at a port in the ancient city of Rhodes. And as you see this port, you notice that for boats to enter the port, they have to travel under the legs of a giant statue. This giant statue is known as the Colossus of Rhodes, an enormous bronze sculpture of the sun god Helios, built by the Rhodians over 12 years, 2,300 years ago. This is a giant bronze statue of a god, a sun god. And as you look at this god, this giant statue, this impressive city, this busy port, I want you to get a feeling of awe, Because this is exactly the feeling that anyone arriving at this port for the very first time, to see such a giant statue, 100 feet tall, back then would be a sight that would create such a feeling of amazement. And as you look at this huge statue, I want you to get a feeling of a sense of awe, and how you can create that feeling of awe in your own life. Awe comes from things that are beyond their natural size, whether that's in nature. It's an appreciation of the magnitude, something so impressive. And as you look at the statue of the sun god Helios, this colossus of Rhodes, I want you to get a feeling of awe transferring from the statue into you, getting a feeling of what it would mean to create this feeling of awesomeness in different parts of your life. How even the simple things can give you a feeling of gratitude, because even something as delicate as the petal on a flower can give a feeling of awe, the magnitude of nature and life. And as you drift off, imagine that you're in one final place. I want you to imagine that you're on a small island called Pharos, near the city of Alexandria, in what would now be northern Egypt. And in this place is a lighthouse, a gigantic lighthouse. A lighthouse so big that it was able to steer ships away from any danger. Nobody knows exactly how big this giant lighthouse was, but historians have estimated it to be anything up to about 600 feet. And I want you to imagine that you're climbing the stairs all the way to the top of the lighthouse, enabling you to see the Mediterranean Sea from the coast of Africa all the way across the Mediterranean, seeing those blue seas, those old-fashioned boats coming in, feeling the sun on your skin. And I want you to get a sense of what you're getting from this lighthouse is guidance. In the same way that the lighthouse guides, I want you to get a feeling that something is guiding you to make good decisions, taking you in the direction of your own future in exactly the way that it should be. And whatever you call these guides, just know that you're being guided in the best way, away from danger, threats and mistakes, and towards good decisions and good people and good opportunities. You get a feeling of being guided, and with that feeling of being guided, it's now time to leave these 7 ancient wonders of the world. And I want you to imagine that you're going all the way back to Egypt, just remembering that you're there, having a dream as you're looking up at the stars next to the ancient Pyramids of Giza, and realize that this dream was just a dream within a dream, and actually you're exactly where you are in your own body, feeling relaxed, feeling resourceful, feeling like you have all of these resources and qualities absorbed into you, enabling you to take your life in exactly the direction that you want to take it. In a few moments' time, I will count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken with all of these resources, and more importantly, the ability to use them in exactly the context and environment that will be most impactful. All of that creativity, wisdom, infinite genius, the ability to see awe in everything, and unlocking that creativity, but also knowing that life is yours to turn it into your own masterpiece. In a few moments' time, I will count from 1 to 10 to awaken you, and you will awaken completely in the moment, fully wide awake, unlocking all of these resources, feeling refreshed and alert. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.